Today we are continuing our ranking of death metal albums from 2025, starting with Impureza with Alcázares. Alright, and once more, we're going to slide this over to make a whole bunch of room here. So this is the third album from this French band that has been around since 2004, and they really do infuse that classical Spanish guitar into the riffs with this one in an incredibly fun and infectious way. I had a lot of people requesting me to cover this, and yeah, I had a great time with it. Those flamenco sections are just such a refreshing joy in the midst of so many other death metal records on here that, while great in their own rights, just tend to be kind of samey. So this is one that moved very quickly to perfection. Next up we have Beheaded with Għadam. The seventh album from this Maltese death metal band formed in 1991, and these blackened guitars give me a lot of mid-career Behemoth vibes. Just replace anti-Christian lyrics with their own native folklore. Listening to this album feels like watching a shadow slowly grow and grow as the darkness overtakes everything around it. Not one of the best, but I put it at amazing. We also have Incinerated with the epitome of transgression. The second album from this Indonesian death metal band with an emphasis on blackened atmosphere, more music with a clear love for the old school that sounds as if it was recorded in some dark, unholy cavern deep within the earth. It can get pretty technical at times too, between the standout performance on the kit and also death spell influence sounding guitars. This one went to great tier. Next up is Thorn with Nebulous Womb of Eternity. Some truly despicable death doom out of Arizona from this solo project on its fourth full length since starting in 2020. Y'all know it takes quite a bit for anything doom to grab my attention, but this one definitely got me with its sewage-like aesthetic. Great union of slow, hypnotic grooves and eerie ambience, all captured with some truly, again, cavernous production. This one went to killer. Next up is Floating with Hesitating Lights. Now, we've had quite a few fusions of post-punk and black metal in the last few years, but this is the first time I've really come across one with death metal. And I think this Swedish band perfectly unites the shared dark qualities of both genres into a surprisingly cohesive package. It's like Joy Division or Susie and the Banshees had a very strange baby with Demolish. Lots of people raving about this one when I covered it on my Best of the Month list. It is going to fantastic. Then there's Inhuman Condition with Mind Trap. Now, I saw a few comments hyping up this Florida band's third album as well, and given that it's a super group made up of members of Deicide, Obituary, and Overkill, I could understand making sure I didn't miss it, but that said, I'm pressing play. I was not super impressed with this. I thought it was solid enough, but I don't get the hype around it. I am putting this one at good tier. Then we have Cordyceps with Hell Inside. Some truly gnarly, brutal death metal on this sophomore effort, and in addition to the usual slammy guitars and gurgly vocals, their bass sounds like a metal bat striking a steel pole. Songs go on about a minute longer than maybe they need to, if you ask me, but it's still kind of a mild trade-off for the general punishment. I had a good time with it overall. It is going to great too. Next up is Hexrot with Formless Ruin of Oblivion. The debut release from this Massachusetts band presented as a seamless composition over 35 minutes and split into 7 tracks. Quite the progressive experience. I hear notes of everything from Abyssal and Veilburner to Deathspell Omega and Krallis, the latter being especially notable as Colin Marston provides mastering here. More than a touch of avant-garde to make for something a bit more off-kilter in a year packed with more streamlined OSDM and tech death. I am putting this one also at killer, which is right here. Anyways, next up we have Harvested with Dysthymia. This little gem came out of absolutely nowhere for me and ended up completely knocking my socks off in that month. Denver crew just putting out their first full length and already giving some Cannibal Corpse's best albums a run for their money. Every track here slaps, not a single dud to be found. I am actually thinking perfection for this one. Next up is Warmen with Band of Brothers. The 7th album from this Finnish melodic death metal crew, helmed by former Children of Bodom keyboardist Jan Warmen, and as much as I enjoy the previous record, I have more mixed thoughts on this one. The synth parts are unmistakable if you've been missing that COB sound, and there are solid riffs to be found as well, but the production and songwriting feel a bit lacking, and Petri's vocals, despite generally being a fan of his work with Ensiferum, just aren't quite cutting the mustard for me on this one. So I thought this would end up going higher, but it just went to good tier. Then we have Malthusian with The Summoning Bell. As if summoned from the great depths, the Irish blackened death metal band returning, finally, in full malignant force for their second full length, 7 years in the wake of the debut. I can't believe it's been that long. Now with the support of Relapse Records, and these guys are bringing the atmosphere as dark and miserable as ever, mixing harrowing, echoing death growls, jangly blackened guitars, and alternations of slithering doom and fiery chaos reminiscent of Portal. Once more, quality always reigns over quantity in my book. These guys may have only 4 releases at this point, but that only makes me more excited every time I hear their name come up. Like, I kind of get tired when I see bands constantly putting out stuff so quickly. I'm looking at you, Asaktralahum, but this is going to fantastic. Then we have Unaligned with A Form Beyond. More killer releases from Transcending Obscurity with the debut from this tech death crew. Killer drums and sick riffs, but also killer bass work on this one that'll give you the stank face for sure. Absolutely dominating vocal performances as well. This guy is so pissed off, and I love it. It is going to amazing. Then we have Plasmodulated with An Ocean of Putrid, Stinky, Vile, Disgusting Hell. The debut full-length from this Florida death metal band that is as Florida as they come, in courtesy of Warflich's Mick Colby. Notably, guitars are up-tuned here for a traditional E-tuning, harkening back to the days of the old-school classics. Another solid mix of more brutal and at times semi-technical flair with more ominous, doom-ridden moments. Great title, too. It's just so fun to say that every time. It is going to killer. We also have Defacement with Doomed. The 4th album from this multinational experimental death metal band, Passages remind me of everything from Ulcerate and Abyssal to Imperial Triumphant and Blood Incantation. Dark flurries of technicality giving way to surprisingly bright and shimmery notes of like post-rock and shoegaze, even some ambient interludes. Quite the spectrum of sound on display here, from harrowing violence to pure bliss. This is going to perfection. We also have Unleashed with Fire Upon Your Lands. In the aftermath of destruction, when all is said and done. I've never been a big enough fan of these guys to warrant digging into their entire discography for a tier list, but I've generally enjoyed their output, which goes all the way back to 1990, and somehow all these years later, I feel like this album just manages to capture the same early Swedish death metal sound with their special Norse mythology twist and plenty of D-beat. They're not reinventing the wheel, but they definitely aren't phoning it in either, which I think is generally a good sweet spot for a legacy death metal band like this to be in. I am putting them at great tier. We also have Sallow Moth with Mossbane Lantern. Another really wild and unique sounding Eye Voidhanger death metal entry from this Texas solo project. It's their 3rd full length, brought to you by the prolific Gary Brentson, very much channeling the oddball elements of once more like Ackercock, but also venturing into maybe even more unpredictable territory. Guitar influences seem to run the gamut from Gorguts and Artificial Brain to Cynic, Death, and Carcass. Really impressive and pretty memorable stuff here too. I saw some people giving this low ratings that month when it came out, and I'm like, why? Check it out. It's going to fantastic. Then we have Cult Burial with Collapse of Pattern, Reverence of Dust. Another great title, and the 3rd album from this UK blackened death metal band, delivering some similar sonic qualities as Ulcerate, but with their own chilling twists as well. Some of these tracks truly seem to echo just into eternity, and that is when they aren't pounding you into complete dust. More great contrast between vast drifting soundscapes and violent barrages of double bass pedal. This is going to amazing. We also have Monoliyth with He Who Kills. Realizing at this point I probably need to drag this over a little bit more. More old school stuff here. This Australian metal crew was formed all the way back in 1998, and yet this is only their second full-length record. I could probably draw some comparisons to the likes of Suffocation and Malevolent Creation with their dark atmosphere, brutal vocals, and penchant for technicality. Another case where this is definitely meat and potatoes, but again, who doesn't like meat and potatoes, especially when seasoned properly? So it is going to Killer. Then we have Yotuma with The Final Void. Some more grimy, ugly death metal mixing old school and new with this Wisconsin band's second album. Sufficiently crunchy, a little bit one note with some standout moments. I'd like a little bit more variation, but it is still good enough that I am putting it at great tier. Then there's Pillars of Cacophony with Paralipomena. This Austrian band has a sound that seems to mix elements of Ulcerate and Artificial Brain, among other things. It's somehow both dissonant and melodically engaging at the same time, in perfect balance, and some of the songwriting also gives me a weird, like, Tool vibe to it, despite being a completely different genre. Another one, I had a lot of requests to check this one out, because I don't think I covered it originally. But yeah, it made its way to perfection. Then there's Pyrexia with Unholy. Album 8 for this New York death metal band we've also covered in the 90s by year rankings. Really tight 25 minutes of pure violent abominations. Blood to Ash, The Fall of Eden, The Anointed, and A Moment of Violence are particularly potent tracks that absolutely pummel you. This one went all the way to fantastic. Then there's In Mourning with The Immortal. It's been a minute since I thought of this Swedish melodic death metal band that has been around since 2000, but particularly caught my ear with 2016's Afterglow. Back then I compared them quite a bit to Opeth, but these days it seems like they're a little bit more in line with Amorphous and Catatonia. Not my favorite, but enjoyable enough. I am putting this one at great tier. Speaking of Amorphous, we have Amorphous with Borderland. I debated including this, as I tend to think of them almost more as just like a pure progressive band, more so than a melodic death metal band these days, but regardless, I've been a fairly long-time fan of this Finnish group, and I'm sure there would be people complaining if they weren't on here. This one continues the elements that I've enjoyed about the last few albums, with the big atmosphere, infusions of folk elements, and solid riffs, but at this point, the formula does feel like it's wearing a little thin, and just leaves me feeling like this is sort of a lesser version of things that they've already done, and so for that reason, it still did well. Like, it's still a good album, I enjoyed it, but it just made it to Killer. I would have expected it to go higher. We also have Mors Principium Est with Darkness Invisible. Longtime fan of this highly underrated Finnish melodic death metal band, now with their 9th record, and it feels like they're even trying to further step up the more dramatic qualities of the music while still bringing the riffs, and All Life is Evil feels like it's going like full Flesh God Apocalypse. I've made comparisons at times with them because of the like orchestral and symphonic elements, but I feel like that is very much a focus of this one. Another really strong album and just a tight discography overall. If you're not familiar, please check out the discography tier list of this one. I've also done them for a lot of other bands here that we just talked about. I've done one for Amorphous, several others, but yeah, in particular, I really encourage you to check out Mors Principium Est. If you're new to them, this is going to amazing. And then we have Revocation with New Gods, New Masters. Album 9 from this highly consistent fusion of thrash, death, and prog. Killer riffs and songwriting with a dark graveyard atmosphere, leaning even further into death metal this time around, including guest spots from Travis Ryan of Cattle Decapitation and Job for a Cowboy's Johnny Davey. Now, as I said, in this discography tier list, this may be my new favorite. Actually, I think it tops the previous album in every possible way. It is so good. I was having a blast with this. It kind of feels like another like unofficial The Black Dahlia Murder record too. I'm putting this at perfection. It may be my favorite of this quarter for death metal. And then just checking in again, here is the full ranking so far. All right, y'all, I'm sure there were even more albums that I could have covered, but I wound it down to a nice 25. I can't do this forever. There's so many. Like, for every one I include, there's like 100 that I didn't. So there it is. But check out this playlist for parts 1 and 2 if you missed them, or this for plenty more like death metal rankings in their discography. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.